Number 1.
A mysterious 19th-century shipwreck has been discovered by researchers testing underwater drone equipment in the Gulf of Mexico. A team from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA) aboard the exploration vessel Aquinos Explorer was testing the equipment on May 16 when the wreck was spotted. Sonar on the ROV, remotely operated vehicle, Deep Discoverer picked up what appeared to be the shape of a shipwreck, prompting the NOAA researchers to take a closer look. The shipwreck finding required a swift change in operations, illustrating the power of telepresence technology, explained NOAA in a statement. After a flurry of phone calls and emails to marine archaeologists around the country, experts tuned in to live video from the seafloor, lending their expertise as they virtually joined the dive. The drone's dive was extended 3 hours longer than originally planned to give experts watching the live stream more time to analyze the amazing discovery. Those who joined the live stream suspect that the wreck is that of a sailing vessel built sometime in the mid-19th century, perhaps a schooner or brig, measuring roughly 37.8 meters (124 feet) long, NOAA wrote. The vessel is wooden with copper sheathing covering the bottom of its hull. The ship's bow, its hull and the remains of its windlass, a form of winch, offered key clues as to when the vessel was constructed. However, this information does not indicate the age of the vessel at the time it was lost, which could have been decades later, NOAA added on its website. Initial observations also noted copper and iron artifacts at the site, but no diagnostic artifacts reflecting the vessel's rig, trade, nationality, or crew were identified during the dive. The remains of the hull are more or less intact up to the waterline, according to NOAA, which notes that the copper sheathing has protected the ship's timbers. Some sheathing, however, has deteriorated and fallen off the hull, leaving only the edges of the copper plate where they were attached to the hull. All of the vessel's structure above the waterline, however, is missing, and there are few traces of the ship's standing rigging. Experts are now weighing the possibility that the ship was ablaze when it sank. A number of timbers appeared charred, and some of the fasteners were bent, which may be an indication of burning, NOAA stated. While the evidence is still being assessed, it is possible that this sailing vessel caught fire and was nearly completely consumed before sinking. This may explain the lack of artifacts from the rigging, decks, and upper works, as well as the lack of personal possessions. The numbers 2109 are also visible on the ship's rudder. NOAA is no stranger to wreck discoveries. In 2014, federal scientists released the first images of the newly discovered wreckage of a steamship that sank in San Francisco Bay in 1888, killing 16 people. The following year, experts from NOAA and the University of Hawaii released remarkable images of a U.S. Navy seaplane sunk during the opening minutes of the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Other shipwrecks have been discovered by accident. Earlier this year, for example, a search for shipping containers that fell off a merchant ship during a storm led to the discovery of a historic 16th-century shipwreck off the Dutch coast.
Number 2.
The whereabouts of a 1,950-ton palm oil tanker that went missing off West Java on December 28 remain unknown, with the National Search and Rescue Agency, Basarnas, and the Navy speculating on its disappearance. The Namps Bangdzard, carrying 1 million liters of crude palm oil, CPO, departed from Sampit, central Kalimantan, on December 27 and was expected to arrive in Jakarta's Tanjung Priok port the following day. The Sampit Port Authority office says it lost contact with the vessel in the waters of Ujung Karawang, West Java, on December 28 and the vessel never arrived in Tanjung Priok. According to tracking website marinatraffic.com, the tanker was in Ujung Karawang waters until January 3, with the last data input occurring at 9:42 a.m. on that date. Officials are now left questioning whether the ship has sunk or been hijacked. Basarnas believes the tanker, which is manned by a captain and 11 crew members, has fallen victim to piracy. The agency has been searching for the tanker for 3 days and is ready to end the search. We believe it has been hijacked. This means it's not our responsibility anymore, the agency's spokesperson Sari Sanaga told the Jakarta Post on Wednesday. The Navy, however, is unconvinced. Arbagung, who heads the Navy Information Agency and First Fleet Command, which oversees the western part of Indonesia, Jakarta Sabang, said it was too early to say that the tanker had been hijacked. He said it was unlikely because the route is considered safe with no history of piracy. If it were hijacked, it would involve a third party, but there has been no ransom demand reported, at least so far. We must go deeper into this case first. Agung claimed that the ship's apparent position had been recorded several times through its automatic identification system, which indicated that the ship had changed location several times. It was reportedly in Jakarta Bay and then moved to Sunda Kelapa port. But the ship, Agung said, was not in either of those places. Indeed, it could have been hijacked, but we have no idea who did it because no ship has been hijacked in the past 3 years in our sea area. Maritime expert from the 10 November Institute of Technology, Raja Alansat Gurning, concurred with Agung, saying there had never been any report of piracy in those waters. Gurning, however, refused to rule out the possibility of piracy, saying that he believed the size of the CPO cargo aboard the tanker could be a reason for it being hijacked. He argued that it was unlikely that the tanker had an accident as the weather was fine and there had been no distress signal. It is also unlikely that the vessel was adrift at sea, as the Navy had found no sign of it, he said. So the piracy possibility needs to be considered because its positions have been tracked several times by several vessel finder providers, Gurning said. It has been 12 days since the tanker went missing, and the authorities still have no clue as to its whereabouts. Sinaga said Basarnas had broadcast an AMS Bangdzard's details via coastal radio for mariners sailing from Sampit to Pangkalan Bun in central Kalimantan, in the hope that if the ship is seen it will be reported immediately. The 1993-built vessel, owned by shipping company PT Petronusa Niaga Energy and operated by PT Surabaya Shipping Lines, is 75.15 meters in length. Sanada said the agency would continue searching for the next 4 days and would let the Navy and the water police take over the mission after that. Agung said the Navy had deployed 4 warships in the search for the tanker around the Java Sea. A search, he added, would also be conducted from Surabaya in East Java to the central part of Indonesia using maritime patrol aircraft. We will continue searching until we find it, he said.
Number 3.
Promoters call the Thai island of Koh Tao a paradise. Dive resorts boast of its crystal clear waters and Western tourists flock to its lively beach bars. But among some foreigners, Koh Tao has taken on a more sinister reputation. At least 9 European tourists have died or disappeared there since 2014. British tabloids began calling it Death Island. Now, the claim of a 19-year-old British tourist that she was raped on Koh Tao in June has again focused attention on the island's troubled history and called into question police handling of serious crimes against tourists. Initially, the police denied that a rape occurred and arrested a dozen people for posting about it on Facebook. The police also issued arrest warrants for an online newspaper editor in Britain and a Facebook page administrator in California. After opening an investigation and interviewing the young woman in Britain, the police said last month that they had found no evidence to support her claim and closed the case. They said they would reopen the case if new evidence emerged. The decision disappointed and angered the young woman's mother, who insists that the 19-year-old is telling the truth. She accused the police of mishandling the investigation and covering up crime on the island. The whole thing has been a farce from the very beginning, she said by phone from Britain. Why on earth would someone make this up? The New York Times does not generally identify victims or possible victims of sexual abuse and is not identifying the woman's mother for the same reason. Through her mother, the young woman declined to speak with the Times. Thailand, with about 35 million visitors last year, is one of the world's most popular tourist destinations and promotes itself as the land of smiles. The government, which has been run by a military junta since 2014, is sensitive to criticism that could undermine the country's reputation. In a patriarchal society where the Number Metu movement has not taken hold, some officials have suggested that women bring rape or sexual harassment on themselves by wearing provocative clothing, prompting protests under the hashtag #NumberDonTelmahotadras. Thailand's Prime Minister, Prayuth Chan-o-cha, questioned the attire and behavior of foreign female tourists shortly after the killing of 2 British backpackers, David Miller and Hannah Witheridge, on Koh Tao in 2014. Ms. Witheridge was raped before she was killed. They think our country is beautiful and safe and they can do whatever they want, wear bikinis wherever they like, the Prime Minister said. I'm asking, if they wear bikinis in Thailand, will they be safe? Only if they are not beautiful. He later apologized, saying that he meant only that foreign visitors should be careful. But doubts still linger over the conviction of 2 migrant Burmese workers, Yus All In and Yu Wins Autun, for the killings of Ms. Witheridge, 23, and Mr. Miller, 24, at popular Sari Beach. A judge found the workers guilty and sentenced them to death, despite questions about DNA evidence and the police handling of the case. The men's supporters say they were framed. Other tourists who died include a Frenchman, Dimitri Pavs, 29, who was found hanged in 2015 with his hands tied behind his back. The police ruled it a suicide. Last year, a Russian tourist, Valentina Novozyanova, 23, disappeared with her diving gear. The police concluded she drowned at sea. The eldest to die was a 33-year-old Moldovan man, Alexandr Buxpan, who drowned in October after he went swimming late at night. The police ruled out foul play. In some cases, family members challenged the police findings. Koh Tao, a ferry ride from better-known Koh Samui, has long had a reputation as a home for organized crime and as a place where the police protected local interests. The police major general who headed the rape investigation, Surachate Hackburn, said in an interview with The Times that the police have cracked down on crime syndicates on Koh Tao since the backpackers' double killing. "We admit that in the past, there was a mafia there that took advantage of tourists," he said. "Today, we have gotten rid of them." Summer 2017, the young woman from Britain came to Koh Tao in June with a group of male friends. She and one of the friends, Martin Fu, went to a popular beach bar and ordered drinks after midnight on June 26, according to their accounts. They soon began feeling woozy, left the bar and passed out on the beach. When the young woman woke up some hours later, Mr. Fu was not there. But an unfamiliar man was watching her and quickly left, she said. Her underwear had been removed and she knew immediately that she had been raped, her mother said. Her phone, cash and credit cards were gone. She returned to the hostel where they were staying, and Mr. Fu arrived soon after. She was visibly upset and told people there she had been raped. Another friend and Mr. Fu collected her shirt, which was stained and potentially held DNA evidence, they thought. In a September interview with a Thai journalist posted on Facebook, Mr. Fu said he was certain that she was telling the truth and rejected claims in Thailand that she had invented the story to hide a romantic encounter from her boyfriend. "I think that's crazy," Mr. Fu said. "If you want to cover up a problem, you wouldn't create a bigger problem." The hostel manager, Patara Jamtrikal, urged her to report the rape to the police. But the young woman wanted to leave Koh Tao on the next ferry, for which the group already had tickets. "I was just in a state, I couldn't talk to anyone, I was terrified," the young woman told the Times of London in her only interview. "I just wanted to get off the island." The next day on neighboring Koh Phangan, she and Mr. Fu went to the police to report the rape and robbery, according to their account. The officer took their robbery report but wouldn't accept a rape report or the possible DNA evidence that they had collected and told them they must report the rape on Koh Tao. She wasn't offered any kind of medical assistance or examination, her mother said. General Surachate, the police officer who headed the investigation, contested their version of events. "She did not report about being raped at all," he said. "I called the officer on duty and questioned him myself." About a week later, the young woman returned to Britain and Mr. Fu returned to Koh Tao, where he tried to report the rape to the police with the help of Ms. Patara, the hostel manager. The officer refused to take his report or the shirt with the potential DNA evidence because only a victim can file a police report. In Britain, the young woman told her mother that she had been raped. She received a medical exam and sought counseling from a rape center, which led to her telling a British police officer of the rape. Eventually, she and her mother gave her account to the British media, which had extensively covered the deaths on Koh Tao. Responding to the news reports, the Thai police said a rape could not have occurred because the tide on the beach was exceptionally high that night and the tourist area was crowded. The police sent an investigator to Britain to interview the woman and retrieve the shirt. General Surachate said analysts recovered male DNA from the shirt but found no semen. The police said they compared the DNA to that of 20 men on Koh Tao who are commonly suspected of crimes but found no match. He said the police interviewed about 200 people and found no evidence to corroborate her account. "There is no new evidence that clearly shows that a rape really occurred," said the general, who was recently promoted to immigration commissioner. He defended the arrests of the 12 Facebook users, saying that the post they shared wrongly identified a suspect, causing him to lose work. They face up to 5 years in prison. Human Rights Watch accused the police of using the computer crimes law to stop people from questioning their shoddy investigation of the rape case. One person still sought by the police is Suzanne Buchanan, editor of the Samui Times, an online news outlet that has reported on the deaths in the rape case. She said the warrant would not affect her since she lives in Britain. "They are accusing me of peddling fake news when it is not fake," she said. "And they are accusing me of committing a crime in Thailand when I haven't been there in 2.5 years.
Number 4.
Deep down in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico lies a graveyard of forgotten history. Littering the bottom like fossils from another era are an estimated 4,000 shipwrecks, ranging from 18th century vessels to sunken German U-boats from World War II, all doomed to remain out of sight and confined to their respective corners of history, remarkably preserved down in the cold murky waters like ancient insects in amber, sometimes in thousands of feet of water within perpetual darkness. This plethora of wrecks from so many different eras has made the Gulf a haven for wreck hunters and scientists, and occasionally a truly mysterious discovery will be made down in the depths. Such is the case of a mysterious unidentified shipwreck from the 1800s, which by some accounts might even be actually cursed, haunted, or both. The wreck in question was first stumbled upon by ExxonMobil in 2003 when they came across a previously unknown wreck as they were laying an oil pipeline some 30 miles offshore from the mouth of the Mississippi River. The wreck was of immediate interest to researchers at Texas A&M University and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA), but considering that it was buried down 3/4 of a mile below sea level, it was a daunting task to get at it and investigate with divers. Preliminary excursions with robotic submersibles showed that the amazingly intact ship was a 65-foot-long wooden sailing vessel, probably from the early 1800s, although whose it was or why it was there are still impenetrable mysteries. Despite the ongoing mishaps, the team was able to learn that the mysterious vessel was covered in hand-nailed copper plating, which was an artifact of a bygone age in the late 1700s and early 1800s of plating vessels to deter wood-eating pests and to serve as armor for warships. It was speculated that this vessel could have even been a warship sunk in the Battle of New Orleans in the War of 1812, but this was about as far as they got considering their sub was constantly refusing to work properly. The curse would apparently continue when the investigation was handed off to a Navy research vessel called the NR-1. A sub was put into the water and immediately malfunctioned, veering off out of control and then getting its tether caught in the ship's propellers. The rover was subsequently smashed against the side of the ship and completely destroyed. They were finally able to get another rover down there and were even able to pick up a piece of the wreck's stern post, but as the sub was making its way back to the surface, the arm's hydraulic system shut down and the artifact slipped out of its grasp away back down to join the wreck down there in the gloom, leading one researcher to lament, "We spent 2 days looking for that. Never found it again." Research would pass over to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, who also experienced all manner of freak accidents. As soon as their ship left port, they were forced to abort the mission when the propeller was damaged by a piece of floating debris, and on a second try the propeller locked, and they had to return yet again. In the meantime, a group of government researchers offered to stop by the wreck, only to have their ship almost sink when a prop shaft broke off to penetrate the ship and flood the engine room, at the same time damaging the sub-rover as well. The next time a rover was put into the water to examine the wreck, it experienced a leak in the electronics system and shorted out. To this day, the stubborn wreck has not been successfully explored, and the only artifact researchers have managed to procure from it is a single scrap of copper plating. That's it. They know that it is a double-masted wooden ship covered with copper plating and that it was probably built in the early 1800s, but other than that, your guess is as good as anyone else's. It is unclear whether this shipwreck is really cursed or not, but it is intriguing that it should be so seemingly resistant to being explored. There are plenty of other shipwrecks in the Gulf that have been investigated and analyzed without incident, so why should this one have so much trouble orbiting it? It is impossible to say, and for now it still lies down in the dark as it always has, perhaps daring us to come and try to glean its secrets.
Number 5.
A trio of divers off the western coast of Norway had a close encounter with a drifting gelatinous blob, a squid's egg sac, as big as an adult human. A video captured and shared on YouTube on October 6 by Ronald Roche, a diver with the Norwegian research vessel Rev Ocean, shows a diver slowly circling a spherical blob surrounded by a transparent membrane with a dark mass suspended inside. As the diver swam around the blob, his flashlight lit up its interior. Inside were numerous tiny spheres, eggs holding baby squid, estimated to number in the hundreds of thousands, according to the video description. The Rev Ocean divers spotted the egg mass during a visit to a submerged World War II shipwreck in Fjorden, Norway, located about 650 feet (200 meters) from the coast. They were swimming back to shore at a depth of 55 feet (17 meters) when they saw the blob drifting by, according to the YouTube description. Roche described the blob as a Blekspergelball, squid gelball in Norwegian, when he posted the video. And this was far from the first account of such an unusual object. Dozens of similar blobs have been sighted in waters near Norway, Spain, France and Italy, with reports dating back 30 years, said Haldis Ringvold, a researcher with Sea Snack Norway and the project leader for Huge Spheres, an investigation of the spherical sacs. Scientists were previously perplexed by the blobs, which are so delicate that they are difficult to approach closely and sample for testing, Live Science previously reported. Divers had reported seeing spheres along the Mediterranean and Norwegian coasts in 2017, and DNA analysis of samples from 4 spheres recently confirmed that they were egg sacs belonging to the southern short-fin squid, Ilex candidii, a 10-armed cephalopod found on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. The newfound sphere is similar to previously documented egg sacs in its appearance, size and location, and I assume this is also made by Ilex candidii, Ringvold said. While the blob in the video appears to be about the same size as the diver swimming around it, these spheres typically measure about 3 feet, 1 meter in diameter on average, Ringvold said in a statement. The dark mass is probably ink from the female squid, who injected it while making the sphere, he said. At the very end of the video, it is possible to see the actual squid eggs. They are very small, round and transparent. A short-fin squid egg measures about 0.07 inches (0.2 centimeters) in diameter when the embryo is ready to hatch, and females produce between 50,000 and 200,000 eggs, according to SeaLifeBase, an internationally managed database of marine life. Embryonic development typically takes 10 to 14 days when the water temperature is 59 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees Celsius, SeaLifeBase says. The short-fin squid is part of the group Aegopsida, which is known to produce large spherical egg sacs, Ringvold said. But for some species in this group, evidence of their egg masses is yet to be found. Researchers with the Huge Spheres project are therefore collecting photos and videos of sphere sightings, as well as tissue samples, to learn more about these elusive animals, Ringvold said.
Number 6.
According to legend, an attractive woman arrived to the coast of Japan aboard the hollow ship. This woman was unlike the other women in the region. Local fishermen accompanied this strange-looking female inland, but they were unable to establish communication since this visitor could not communicate in Japanese. This historical event took place on February 22, 1803, when the round-looking object, which according to texts was made of iron and glass, floated ashore. The object was unlike any other ships in the region, and according to history, at the time this ship washed ashore there were no round ships in Japan. This hollow ship had very strange symbols on its metallic surface, which the locals did not manage to decipher. According to the Yume no Chiri, the ship reminded the witnesses of a rice cooking pot. Around its middle, it had a thickened rim. It was also coated with black paint, and it had 4 little windows on 4 sides. The windows had bars and they were clogged with tree resin. The lower part of the boat was protected by brazen plates which looked to be made of iron of the highest Western quality. The female visitor was not very tall, according to ancient texts, 1.5 meters, she had very pale skin and was dressed in a very strange way. The woman seemed very polite and had fiery red hair with red eyebrows. In her hands she held a box that was 60 centimeters in length. There were 2 books published early that speak about this strange incident. One book is called Ton Shisetsu, published in 1825, and the other book is Yume no Chiri, published in 1844. The stories that were told in the books are considered to be based on old tabloid-like newspapers that are commonly called Kawara Ban, while there are also many stories that originate from local folklore. One of the most mysterious and interesting aspects of this legend revolves around the box that the female visitor held in her hands. A rectangular-shaped box was made out of material unlike anything found in Japan. The female visitor did not allow anyone to touch the box, so we can assume that it was extremely important to the visitor, but the exact purpose of the box is still unknown. In the Ton Shisetsu story, an old villager is said to have made a speech if the female visitor was present in the village. This woman may be a daughter of a king in a foreign country and might have been married in her home country. However, she loved another man after marriage, and her lover was put to death. Since she was a princess before, she could get sympathy and avoid the death penalty. She had been forced to be put in this boat and was left to the sea to be trusted to fate. If this guess is correct, her lover's severed head is inside the square box. In the past, a similar boat with a woman inside drifted ashore in a beach not far from here. In that incident, a severed head placed on a kind of chopping board was found inside the boat. Judging from this kind of second-hand information, the contents of the box may be similar. This may explain why the box is so important to her and she is always holding it in her hands. We may be ordered to use much money to investigate this woman and boat. Since there is a precedent for casting this kind of boat back out to sea, we had better put her inside the boat and send it away. From a humanitarian viewpoint, this treatment is too cruel for her. However, this treatment would be her destiny. Modern investigations were performed recently of the Itsuro-bune encounter. In 1925 and in 1962, ethnologist and historian Yanagita Kunio pointed out that circular boats were not that unusual in Japan. Ships with that shape have been present in Japan since early times, only some details of the encounter were out of place, such as the glass-made windows and the brazen protective plates, which made the hollow ship look somewhat exotic and strange to the locals that first saw it. The story itself does not have many strange aspects, nor anything that can actually point towards otherworldly technology. The story in all the tales practically remains unchanged. Itsuro-bune never flies or moves on its own, nor does it show any signs of extraordinary technologies. It simply drifts motionless on the water. Research done on the subject concludes that the tale of the Itsuro-bune was a literary mixture of folklore and imaginations. Dr. Kazuo Tanaka based his assumptions on the 1925 investigations of the Japanese historian Yanagita Kunio, who had also studied the tales of the Itsuro-bune. What we know for sure is that the story of the Itsuro-bune is constructed and formulated in such a way that it has to sound incredible. Tanaka and Yanagita pointed out that according to their research, the people of the Edo period shared great interests in paranormal accounts, so we cannot be surprised to find incredible tales like the Itsuro-bune.